As promised, we are back again. 2 Hcmc videos in one day. Today was quite an important day in my opinion for Hcmc because if we look at the price today, you can see we are still on this 0.0012 range. If you do remember from this morning's episode, this is a similar area where we were in that time period. As I discussed with this barcoding that we have been seeing, this did continue to prevail for the rest of the day. So you could be looking at the charts right now talking about the sell-off in the earlier part of the session. That is very apparent. It took us down by about 11%. And even towards the end so far we are falling lower. Now we are currently sat down by about 15%. So it is quite a steep sell-off. However, when we put things into context, when we look at how we have been moving, mainly since this point here on the 25th, so of course just yesterday, in comparison to now, we are still up about 4% from that time period. So again, 4% isn't the largest increase, don't get me wrong. In fact, it's barely anything at all. But it is an increase. I think this could be important when looking at Hcmc. Again, I did tell you guys that I'm going to be back this evening, and here I am. And I said that perhaps my opinions may change on Hcmc. So of course, I am a person, I do have opinions. Sometimes my opinions are wrong, sometimes my opinions are right. If you may enjoy hearing my opinions, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe. Obviously, it's just my opinion, so make sure to do your own research. Of course, watch other people on YouTube, read forums, read news articles, look on Hcmc's website, do all of that information to establish the most amount of knowledge that you can find out about Hcmc. But tonight, we're talking about why I think today could be a slightly important day for Hcmc price-wise, what we could be seeing going forwards, and then towards the end I'm going to be asking, or at least answering, some of you guys' comments from this morning. So again, if you do have any questions or queries that you want to hear my opinions on, make sure to drop them down in the comments. I'll get back to them hopefully tomorrow because that's when our next update on Hcmc is. Again, if you don't know the schedule of the channel, on a Saturday, we look at the fundamentals in a bit more depth and of course any of the news which we may not have looked at in too much detail throughout the week. So you have all of that to come tomorrow, so get ready for that. But yes, tonight we're focusing mainly on the week's action and of course today's action again. So looking at the stock chart today, we can see that the share price is still falling by a bit from 9.30, but overall it is basically flat as we have seen for a few weeks throughout the most of the day. So this is a common trend that we see with Hcmc in the sense that we see a bit of a sell-off in the morning. It's usually a bit more steep than what we are seeing today, but yeah, we see a sell-off end pretty quickly, and again this one finishing around 10.30, and then after that we actually see the share price flatten out, and as I discussed in yesterday's episode, or at least earlier this morning's episode, we see this barcoding happen where the share price bounces up, down, up, down, up, down in a certain range. This continued into today. We were seeing a similar thing throughout the day, and you know what, that is fine. Now, what I said in this morning's episode is I think it is too soon to say whether Hcmc is going to go back up right now or whether it is going to continue to go down. Personally, I own about 846,000 shares of Hcmc. Yes, I do hold quite a lot. And I was reading some of the comments earlier. I heard somebody who had 132 million shares of Hcmc. So of course, in comparison to you, mate, I have nothing at all. But you know what? It's still about $1,000, so of course it is a lot of money. Regardless, though, I think Hcmc is a decent stock. But again, I wouldn't even be too disappointed if it was to go down a bit more. This is something which I discussed this morning. I think it's a case of Hcmc, no matter how good the fundamentals are, and I do believe that the fundamentals are pretty decent, but no matter how good they are, people realistically are looking towards this lawsuit, and we all know that it's the case. The lawsuit is basically the thing driving the hype around the stock at the moment. Again, not a good thing, not a bad thing. I'll let you decide. I think it's not, either way. I think, of course, we still could see big growth on the stock going forwards, but I wouldn't be surprised if the stock was to sell off a little bit more before we were to see that. Now, on the other hand, again, we could actually be seeing a bit of a reversal in share price already, and again, it is still too soon to say, but if we do look over to the candlesticks, we can see the sell-off over the past 2 or 3 days. It is still going on, it definitely is, but obviously it is kind of slowing down once more. And today is really, really flat. I mean, yes, that candlestick is continuing to push down. We can see it is still bouncing up and down, but realistically, it is quite flat today. I think this could be the start of this one leveling out. So I'm going to be talking about why in just a moment. But as we discussed this morning, let's look at how a lot of these stock market indices did throughout the rest of the day. So we're going to start off by looking at the Russell 2000. The Russell 2000, if you don't already know, tracks about 2,000 of the smallest cap stocks in the United States. And again, we can see this one is sort of following Hcmc roughly, and I say very, very roughly, in the sense that we saw this big climb up in the morning. Again, we saw a bit of a sell-off from about 10:30, which is kind of similar to Hcmc. Again, this one pulled itself back up a little bit, but it didn't remain same for the rest of the day, and it was finishing down from those highs by about 1%. And 1% may not sound like a lot, and it's not, but of course this is a stock market index. Indexes, or at least indices, don't generally move by too much anyway, so that is worth noting as well. S&P 500, again, we all know what this one is. It's 500 of the largest American companies. This is finishing very, very strong today, which is good. It shows a good, trend for the market in general. Dow Jones looking strong as well tonight, which is fantastic. And another thing which I want to draw your attention to, especially when looking at the Hcmc stock searches, and actually how the stock has been moving, is this Google Trends chart. Now, we focused on this before. I think it's not necessarily the most important piece of information, but I think it is still relevant. Now, right now, what we have on screen is a Google Trends chart. It is kind of self-explanatory. Basically, it tracks trends via things which are searched through Google. So I've typed in the search term HCMC stock. It basically shows how many people are Googling for HCMC stock at the moment. And we can see a straight linear tip off in the amount of searches from this date up here on the 12th of February, and ever since the amount of interest has been going down. However, in the past 2 or 3 days, you can see interest pretty flat, if not picking itself back up ever so slightly, which is good. Now again, I think this could be the start of this one possibly picking itself back up. I think where we are right now, both in search terms for the stock and of course in price for the stock, is a very interesting position. I think it is still a bit too soon to say whether this one is going to start to go back up yet. I think if I was looking to buy this one right now, I'd be waiting at least 2 or 3 days to see if it does start to level out or to see if it continues to go down. And people are going to be saying, well, if you wait 2 or 3 days, you're probably going to lose a bit of your profit, which you could have got if it does start to go back up. That is true, guys, but the same is also relevant if the share price falls. In the sense that if you were to buy shares today, loads of shares today, and it was to fall even further, you'd have lost a lot more money when you just wouldn't have needed to. So for that reason, I would wait on this one for at least 2 or 3 days just to see if it does start to flatten out and has the potential to go back up right now. But again, as I have mentioned previously, I wouldn't be surprised if it was to sell off a bit more, and that's not a bad thing. The lawsuit is a big deal. It's a massive deal. We already know this. The lawsuit could be bringing a lot of money in HCMC's direction and could really help them to start getting the company on the right tracks and really start to expand the company at the rate that we would need to see the share price continue to rise exponentially. So again, a lot is on the table for the lawsuit, but I think this could happen over a few months, if not a few years, and that's not necessarily a reason to be put off, but I think a lot of people still will be put off. I think a consequence of this is that we also could see the share price drop, as I have mentioned. Now, as I have mentioned as well, I do own about 846,000 shares, so I'm not really bashing the stock. I do have a lot of faith in it, but I think people are thinking about a bit too much, a bit too quickly. If we can lower our expectations, if not wait this one out, I think we will be in a much better position. Ultimately, HCMC is a risky stock, it's a penny stock, and we just don't know what is going to happen with this one. People have referred to penny stocks as playing the lottery, and I'm not going to comment on that one too much, but it is to an extent true, in the sense that yes, this penny stock may do well, this penny stock may do well, but it's just hard to say which one is actually going to rocket. There's a number of factors in it, but I think HCMC at the moment is kind of sleeping. People talk about the growth for HCMC being dead. In my eyes, I think that the growth hasn't even picked up yet, because again, we haven't really had anything important in that lawsuit. So far, volume of the day about 2.6 billion. Amazing numbers. Again, yesterday volume was pretty high. Volume yesterday was about 4 billion. So we're looking at around half of that today. But you know what, guys? In my opinion, at least, I think this again shows a lot of interest around the stock still. So the Google Trends charts are coming back into strength. The amount of traded shares is still quite strong, which is good. And I think with the pattern that we are seeing today, we are pushing a bit lower, but it's definitely possible that this one could be leveling out in the next few days. Again, very hard to say though, but personally I would anticipate it dropping a bit more, but either way I would not be too concerned. If you are looking to buy shares, I would leave it at least 2 or 3 days just to see where this one actually goes. But yeah, let us read a few comments from the comment section on this morning's video. Again, if you have any questions, queries, anything, drop me them down in the comment section. I will try to get back to them as soon as possible. Probably in another video, I'll address them rather than commenting back to you. I think if we do it on video, it makes me able to explain things a lot more easily. So we're going to read a few of these comments. Somebody is asking what I think to INND. This is a stock, I do believe. So INND, I have not heard of this one, sir. I can look into this in the very near future. I probably will do that very soon. We have this person down here. I cannot even read that name. It is Worm, aka, and then a load of spelling. So I assume that you know who you are. But this person is saying that they believe that the stock can go to the lowest at 0.0007. So I think that the lowest for the stock going down is going to be at 0.0007. I do agree with that to an extent. I think we are looking around that range. I'd say between the 0.0005 range and then again about the 9 range, I'd like to say. It depends how much interest is still on the stock. I think that a lot of it is still there. Again, this person is also saying that the company's fundamentals are strong and it has the potential to become a well-established company within the next 5 years max. In the meantime, this person is saying that they're using Hcmc to park cash, buying shares at under 0.0014. So fair enough to this person. Again, make sure that you're not putting in more than you're willing to lose. I definitely think that's a good point. And then this person below is saying that they are very smart, and this person has actually apparently put in 132 million shares into Hcmc. So there you go, you heard it here first, 132 million shares. This person's name on YouTube is RD. So you know what, that is a lot of shares. That's a lot of shares. So I'm not sure how this person feels about that. Again, if you're willing to lose that much, fair enough. But when I put money into HCMC, I think it does have potential, but I still consider that money as lost just in case things don't go in our favour. So again, my points that I'm going to make, as I always do, is don't put too much into HCMC. Be very cautious, but I think the next week or so could be very interesting for the share price. People still in anticipation of March the 16th, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens around that time period as well. So I'm going to be talking more about this in tomorrow's episode, what we could see going forwards into the next week. Make sure to join us for that one. See you very soon, guys. Goodbye until the next episode, which will be out hopefully tomorrow evening. See you soon. Goodbye until then.